Today, we are going to continue on what we started last week. Hello, beautiful. We are going
Hello.
to continue on lesson number 132. And the reason we want to complete that lesson is because it's such a lesson in A Course in Miracles. It is a kind of lesson that is really attempting to show us the truth of who we are. And it tells us, well, the whole course is wanting to train our mind so that we remember who we are. Do you realize that from before incarnation, because in order to have an incarnation, we have to make a decision. Now, this is done at the level of the mind. And this is really important that we understand where all power resides. All of our power is at the level of the mind, meaning our thoughts create our reality. So before we even incarnate, before we have this experience of separation, we make a choice to have a human journey. We make a decision while we are safe in the mind of God. What would it be like to be separate from God? And in that instant that we take that thought seriously and then believe that we could even be separate from God, which the Course refers to as a tiny mad idea, in the instant that we believe that we can separate from God, we set in motion a set of circumstances. Our consciousness shrinks, it contracts. We make a decision. I am just a tiny little point. Instead of being one with all that is, instead of being one with God, I am this tiny little contracted point. And we identify as that point. And when we do that, if we take that seriously, clearly we're not going to experience what God would like for us to experience, which is the joy of going on an adventure. Because it's no longer a joyful adventure, it turns into a frightening one. And the minute that we enter a body that is being formed inside of a mother's womb, we are going to come out already at odds with the outer world, because we know that in order to have the full-blown experience of separation, we must forget who we are. You cannot be aware that you're one with all that is at the same time that you're experiencing separation and fear of being separate. This is why we have to go on a journey to train our mind. I've illustrated it with this poster, The Soul's Journey. From the moment that we're born, the energy that we are enters into a human journey. What happens on that human journey is that, and by the way, the human journey happens in our own mind, which makes it even more wild to be able to train the mind to operate from the truth of who we are. Because although it appears that we have a body, we really don't. I'm not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. So to prepare your mind to accept the truth of who you are, we got to go through a lot of gyrations, looking at our beliefs, shifting those beliefs, getting comfortable with the idea that we are, energy first and foremost. Maybe you might need to study quantum physics to understand that. E equals MC squared. Maybe it comes to you intuitively. However, you get to the point that you recognize that what we are is energy, from that moment that you accept that you're energy, this journey becomes a lot easier, because then you are focusing on the energetic aspect of who you are. This is what the Course refers to as the Son of God. We are a child of God. Mind, when the Course uses capital N mind, self, when the Course uses capital S self. What we are is the energetic essence of a child of God having a temporary human experience. E, the energy that we are, has to condense itself, densify its thought system, believe things that are not true to have a physical experience. E equals MC squared. We turn into the matter that we see. And what's important about this is it has to matter to you to get back to the truth of who you are, because we're operating with paradoxes here all the time. Your energy appearing as a body, your non-physical or you're an eternal being appearing to be a temporary person. So you've got to get your mind trained to hold paradoxes, meaning two opposing things at the same time. They have to be true at the same time. They're true at the capital T level. Yes, you are energy. That is true. But it is true that you have a human experience. Now, that's a lowercase t. It's true in this experience, in this physical reality. It's true. And we're operating with other people who believe the same thing. But your mind has to be trained to be grounded in the capital T truth of who we are. And this lesson 132, I lose the world from all I thought it was, is what happens when you train your mind to think with God, when you remember the truth of who you are. When you do that, then you have to go through the process, which is the soul's journey. This is what I take my clients through, my students inside of the Awareness Academy. We are learning what the Course in Miracles teaches to facilitate the loosening up of the rigidity of our thought system that has us believe things that are not true. And listen, this is not an easy thing to do. It's simple, but it's not easy. It took me quite a few years to wrap my head around what I was going through. Once I began to experience that dark night of the soul, and I'm beginning to hear guidance, and I'm feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit, and I have an encounter with the divine where everything is shown to me. And then from that moment, I got to make sense of my life from two perspectives. I know the truth of who I am, one with all that is, where light is all there is. Love is the essence of how we operate with one another, because it's the foundational substance that connects us. And then I'm in this world. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I am, I have this encounter, and then I've got to go back to my house to do laundry and cook dinner and wash dishes and pay bills and have a husband and so many things. I'm working. I'm a realtor. So I'm trying to hold these two truths in a way that made sense for me. My ecstasy with the divine lasted, I don't know, maybe a couple of days. It didn't take long. When you got little kids that you got to pack peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for, and then they don't like their food, and you make them dinner and they don't like what they're eating, and you buy them something brand new, and they go out to the creek and they get it all muddy, and they come home, and all of a sudden you become overwhelmed by your day-to-day stuff. The clients are calling. You got to list a new house. Somebody wants to buy a house. Somebody doesn't like the house that you showed them. And all of a sudden, the small r reality kicks in. That ecstasy can go away pretty quickly. But what does not go away is the remembering. The remembering is the activation of our knowingness. And once you have an experience and you have a moment of transcendence, you leave the trance for a little while. And to me, that's what transcendence means. It's not just go beyond, but the trance ends. That's transcend. Take the word and break it apart. The trance ends for a little while. You now know truth. You cannot unknow the truth of who you are, because what happens is the very mind that had to slow down its way of thinking, its knowledge, to descend into the physical you that appears to be physical matter. When we do that, we basically, it's like taking an amnesia pill. Well, when you know the truth, it's like that amnesia pill is gone. Now you know the truth, but you're caught in the matrix. So if you guys watch the movie The Matrix, this is what Neo must have felt. I know I'm not from here, but I'm here. I know that I'm an eternal being, but I'm in a body that is aging, that is got wrinkles, that has gray hair. What the heck's going on? This can disorient a lot of people. Now, if you want to continue to chase the experience, and a lot of people do that, they'll be chasing. They want that back. They want to have that ecstasy back. They want to recreate it. And for most people, all of these moments are really one and done. Now, you can have many of those, but they'll be one and done. You have that one, and it's impossible to recreate it because you're not the same person having that experience. Every second that you're in a physical body, that you're inside of the matrix, you're shifting, you're changing. So at some point, you have this end of your trance, and then you have to make sense of, well, how do I be in the world but not of it? Which is what our brother Jesus has taught us. This is why he incarnated. He incarnated knowing, I got to take a little bit of this amnesia pill. And he did. He was born into a family where he was a normal little boy for the most part. He had some gifts, some abilities. Like, for example, there was a little bird that died, and he held that little bird in his hands and brought it back to life. So as a little child, he had these abilities that your average child didn't have. He had the ability to study the teachings, his Jewish teachings, and some things he knew better than the rabbis did. However, he still had an egoic mind, believing he was the son of Mary and Joseph. He had a brother, and he's a boy, and he's doing these things. He's the one who's healing the bird, so there's the experience of separation. But then he begins to remember, okay, there's got to be more to this. That's why there's a huge gap in the life of Jesus in the Bible. Why? Because he went off to study the truth of who we are. He went off to study from the masters at the time who happened to be in the Far East, because Buddha Buddha was a Hindu, and they created a whole religion after him, Buddhism, or a philosophy, just like we created Christianity out of Jesus, who was a Jew, more of a Essene, but then we created Christianity out of him, out of that. He went to study not Buddhism, but the teachings that help Buddha remember who Buddha is, that help Buddha recognize that we are mind. We are powerful. Everything is in our mind. All that appears in this world is projected from within. So Jesus goes off and learns how to meditate, how to be in this world but not of it. And then when it was time, he comes back to his village. He comes back to the area that he lived in to teach these things to those that he, were around there. He learned how to lose the world from all it was, all he thought it was. He gets indoctrinated like the rest of us in a religion, in a way of perceiving the world from a specific area, specific culture, a specific language. He learned all of that. His mind got programmed. Then he goes off to the Far East and begins the process of deprogramming. He's receiving truth. He's remembering who he is, no different than Neo in the Matrix, no different than any one of us who has an encounter with the divine and then wants to embody that truth while we're in the physical body. Now, if anybody read my newsletter that came out yesterday, I do a weekly newsletter. I call it Practical Wisdom, how to live in the 3D world as we are learning to operate from a 5D consciousness. I specifically talked about the UFOs. We are in the midst of these disclosures. For those of us who have been studying A Course in Miracles, channeled information, we know that there's more than just what we see, more than this physical experience. Those who have been listening to other channelers who channel the Arcturians or the Pleiadians or other beings, those who maybe follow people like John, I believe it's John Greer, I think that's his name, Mr. Greer, have been following the whole extraterrestrial phenomenon. Well, to me, in that newsletter, what I wanted to convey is that anybody who is in fear that there is something beyond is really experiencing the egoic smallness and is afraid of something vast. When in truth, when we go on in this journey, the only way for us to remember who we are is to retrain our minds to accept that we come from vastness, that we come from something great and grand. something, and the Course tells us, is the only thing that we should experience awe for is God. Not for anything in this world. We should not be in awe of the waterfalls. We shouldn't be in awe of each other. We shouldn't be in awe of anything physical. We should only have awe for God, because God is the master creator. And here's the thing, who created us to create. And when you begin to understand that there is intelligence that is way beyond ours, these are beings who, just like us, made a decision to experience separation, and they went on the journeys to experience life however they wanted to experience it. Some wanted to experience it as tall, skinny, bald-headed people. Some wanted to experience it as octopuses who have vast intelligence and drive spaceships, maneuver spaceships, and do all kinds of fascinating things that we cannot even conceive of. The creative mind that is God created us to create. What has happened to humanity, unlike maybe the other beings, intelligent beings, who have utilized their intelligence to just explore, to have fun, to have adventures, we have used our intelligence to condense ourselves into a very tiny, crazy idea. So when all these disclosures are happening, if you feel an excitement, something inside of you is tapping into that remembering that we come from something vast. In order to let go of the world, you have to ground yourself in something else. You can't just let go of the world and then have nothing to fall back on. That's why so many people cultivate a relationship with creator, with universe, with infinite wisdom, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter what we call it. What is vast doesn't need a name. Because a name confines and contains that which it is naming. It's a symbol of a symbol when you come up with a word, when you come up with a name. So as we are training our mind, whether it's through the Course or through any other means, to remember that we are children of the creative source, made in the image of the creative source, and we choose to follow the path that Jesus started teaching us 2,000 years ago, then today we will really enjoy the teachings in A Course in Miracles, which is basically what Jesus taught, but most of it was left out of the Bible. Because if you knew the truth of who you were, you wouldn't fall so deep into the trance of forgetfulness. You would know who you are, and then you would play the game. You would have an adventure. You wouldn't let anybody, not your parents, not your teachers, not the government, not the media, nobody tell you that you're less than who you are. Nobody could tell you that you are anything other than absolutely magnificent, powerful, loving, gentle, kind, absolutely filled with joy. Those are the things that we begin to forget when we buy into the matrix. The matrix conditions us and programs us into believing these things that are not true. So when we were looking at this lesson last week, again, lesson 132, the title is I Lose the World from All I Thought It Was. It basically tells us, I'm going to give us a quick little review. We went through 3 paragraphs. I'm just going to give you the highlights of each. In paragraph 1, what keeps the world in chains but your beliefs? And what can save the world except yourself, capital S self? As I said, consciousness, infinite intelligence, all that is pure intelligence, infinite intelligence. All knowingness exists within that intelligence, within that non-physical energy. We are made of that. We are a thought inside of the mind that thinks everything. So when we begin to accept that that mind created us like itself, a dolphin cannot give birth to a kitty cat, no different than a horse can give birth to a fish. So we have to understand that if God gives birth to and doesn't give birth because we've existed always and forevermore, so there's no birth and no death, when we accept that we are the son, the daughter of God, because God thinks us into existence, we have its exact same power. As a matter of fact, the Course is very clear. We are exactly as powerful as God, except for one thing. We didn't make ourselves. God created us. So when you then accept that, oh, I was created by God, and you accept all of God's power expressed individually through each and every one of us, and we are created to extend the truth of who we are, to extend that love, to extend that adventurous spirit of exploring infinity, exploring all possibilities. When the mind is trained to remember that, then we recognize, as it says in here, what keeps the world in chains but our beliefs. So we have to realize, oh, I've been thinking wrongly. My beliefs have kept me in chain. My beliefs have kept me attached to a worldview that says that power is outside of me, that I don't have that power, that I've got to go through all of these gyrations to accumulate a little bit of power, accumulate a lot of money to become somebody. That is what puts us in bondage to the approval of the outside world, because we believe that our expansion depends on the outside. So it says in sentence 2, and what can save the world except yourself, capital S self. So you got to know who you are. You've got to be willing to question what you've been conditioned to believe in order to remember the truth of who you are. So this can be a very exciting journey if you are open-minded, which is a characteristic of somebody who embodies the Course in Miracles. The Course calls that a teacher of God. You have to be open-minded. And that starts with just being curious. That's why when we go on the soul's journey, when you look at my chart, curiosity is what gets us out of the matrix, out of the control of the matrix. Curiosity means I'm willing to look at everything. I don't have to be attached to being right, or, I don't even have to be wrong about it. I'm just open-minded. I'm willing to be curious about what could there be. That is so necessary right now with the extra focus on disclosures. If you're not curious, you're going to be scared. If you're not curious, something inside of you is going to want to control what you experience, is going to be upset about if it's something you cannot control. Well, we're going to have these beings landing here. President Trump just posted a picture of him walking with an alien. I thought it was fascinating. I'm like, yes, let's go ahead and acknowledge that we have so many you can call them neighbors, you can call them first, second, third, fourth cousins all over the place. We've got relatives. Why? Because we're all one family, one divine, infinite family. To loose yourself from the small-mindedness, the thinking that binds us to the matrix, we must have some curiosity. The curiosity will lead us to recognize that there are two thought systems, two ways of looking at things. One, as if God is a loving creator that created me to extend that love, or the other belief system is that there could be God, and then there's some evil force out there that can hurt me and manipulate me. This is where the Course in Miracles departs from so many teachings. Not only does the Course teach us that God is loving, and it teaches us that anything that keeps us like in this world in chains, that anything that is uncomfortable, that anything that could be called evil, only exists in our mind. So we look at what's out there. Oh my gosh, these terrible things, including all those mean aliens that are evil and they're going to come and hurt us. All of that is being projected from your mind. That alone should make you realize, damn, I am powerful. Wow, I am as powerful as God is. I'm imagining all this stuff and it appears to be my reality. Maybe I really should take that seriously, that I was created to create. But what happens is, because we're conditioned to think that we're less than, that we're not good enough, that we're not special enough, that we're not smart enough, and we go through 12 years of time in the school system, training our mind to regurgitate useless stuff. Half the stuff I learned in school, maybe 90% of the stuff I learned, I don't use that at all. Maybe it's important out there in the world of physics, certain things, maybe the algebra equations, I don't use that. I never make a meal thinking about what is the ratio of the pound of meat that I may be cooking, or these vegetables. What is the I couldn't even intelligently tell you what those formulas are, because if you don't have an aptitude for those things, why are you being filled with that information? Now I know, and some people may put in the comments, well, we all, school is for learning things that you don't know. Well, what if school really is for keeping us from knowing the truth of who we are, which is the information that is most useful? I'm going to stick to that story, that the Matrix indoctrinates us into believing who we are, because if we knew we were powerful, just like Jesus was when he was on planet Earth, if we walked around knowing that I and the Father are one, that I am one with God, that I was created to create, you wouldn't be following senseless rules. You wouldn't be willing to subjugate yourself to what other people think is okay for you, to what other people think is your worth or your value. You wouldn't do that. So we all get conditioned and put in our place in our little boxes so that we can have our own little experience as a small self, lower case S self. So you've got to begin to accept who you are first and foremost as a child of God. Then this lets us know belief is powerful indeed. The thoughts you hold are mighty, and illusions are as strong in their effects as in the truth. The truth, yes, it is true that we're having an experience of separation. And then it tells us that a madman thinks the world he sees is real and does not doubt it. And it goes on to continue to say, you can even sway somebody into questioning their beliefs if they're not being open minded. And that happens because we get conditioned to be right about what we know. And once we are told that this is all that you are, we hold on to that. This is why, I've been teaching for almost 20 years. It takes a very long time. And some of you who I've worked with, you know that if you believe that you're a victim, it takes a very long time. It could take, a decade. It could take, for some people, years. For some people, it's taken lifetimes to accept that maybe I'm not a victim. What if I wasn't a victim? Well, to accept that you're not a victim, then you've got to recognize that all of the stories that you have in your head, all of the beliefs that blame and point the finger at those people hurt me, they did this and that to me, it's very difficult to let go of they had power to hurt me until you understand how powerful you are. And then you have to hold the paradox. So I used my power to pretend that I'd have no power? Yes, no different than when my grandkids play pretend. And the kids now, most of them, my grandson's age, 5, 6 years old, I listen to them playing pretend. They pretend that they're, Superman. They pretend that they are the conductor of the make-believe train. They believe that they can imagine anything they want. We accept it for a child, but what about for an adult? What about a 50-year-old woman who still thinks she's a victim? Or a 70-year-old man who thinks that he has power over other people because he is protecting his identity as a bully? They're playing pretend, no different than my 5-year-olds. My 5-year-old knows that they're playing pretend, but the 50-year-old woman, the 70-year-old man, they don't. They really believe that that pretend is true. So we must make peace with the fact that our thoughts create our reality. We are powerful beings who use their power to pretend we're not powerful. And when you pretend you're not powerful, then you fall in line into what society tells you is your place in it. And we box ourselves into these tiny, mad ideas of who we think we are. And then in paragraph 2, it tells us, yet is salvation easily achieved, for anyone is free to change his mind, and all his thoughts change with it. This is where you need to understand the truth of who you are. Now, a lot of people change their minds from this political party to that political party. I've done that. I have shifted. Some people change their mind from this religion to that religion. I've done that too. But to change your mind to the source of who you are according to what you feel internally, the source of your own understanding when you have an experience, because there is no book out there, there's no teaching out there, there's no movie you can go watch that is going to make you believe the truth of who you are until you feel it inside of yourself. Now, a lot of these words, everything in the Course of Miracles is written in a very high vibration. And those high frequencies is what helps us remember. So our mind has to be curious enough to hear things like, for example, what I just read, yet is salvation easily achieved. For anyone is free to change his mind and all his thoughts change with it. Wow, I can change my thoughts like that. If you move down that path of curiosity and you begin to read things that are high frequency truth, you will then begin to feel within yourself that that truth is true for you. Now, here's a sign that you're really feeling the source of all of creation is when you feel love, because that's the substance that everything is coded in. It's the love, because if you're one with it, you love it. And of course, it's a love that is very different than our conditional love, that is very much a tit for tat kind of love that creates codependency. I'm talking about a love that recognizes, wow, awe that the Creator wanted me here, and awe for the majesty, the magnificence, the infinite ways that creation can express itself, and it wanted me here. And this is something that we talked about in one of the classes in the academy. You've got to develop soul pride. Ego pride brings us down in frequency. Soul pride helps us ascend in frequency. So pride requires a lot of humility. It requires a lot of gentleness. It requires a lot of patience. It's the recognition of who you are, regardless of what the world has trained you to believe is true about you. And you know what's really exciting? Right now, we are at a point in humanity where the collective is shifting to another level of consciousness. We are moving from the lower chakra belief systems, from just a human and I'm separate and I got to fend for myself, it's me against the world. We're moving out of those lower chakra, I'm just dense matter. We're moving to a more elegant way of looking at things. We're moving to the heart. What if love is what I truly am? And when we begin to move into the heart space and we begin to get curious, because curiosity comes from there has to be a level of self-love to be curious, because curiosity means I'm willing to change my mind. I'm willing to go against everything that everybody else taught me. For me, I had to be willing to move beyond Catholicism, and the primary influence in my life for that was my grandmother. I had to love myself enough to say, maybe grandma was incorrect. Abuela, that's who she was to me. Maybe my abuela is wrong. I had to love me, because if I loved her more, if I was like, oh, I cannot betray abuela. She's the most important person in the world. When it comes to religion, she has to have all the facts. Well, soul pride says, well, maybe what if I'm just as intelligent as she is? What if maybe I have access to information she may not have access to? There has to be a gentle acceptance that you are just as capable as anybody else to tap into the vastness of creation. And again, you have to love yourself. You have to acknowledge yourself. You have to accept that who you are was created for a purpose. And maybe that purpose begins with you accepting that there is something greater than you that wants to inform you of the truth of who you are. So, this particular section lets us know in the third paragraph that the present now remains the only time. Here in the present is the world set free. So we're learning how to, in this now moment, acknowledge who we are, recognize that we've been conditioned by past information. So we're making peace with the past. We have to do all the healing work that we need to do to move out of our childish reactions, our emotional outbursts. All of that is childish. Even if you have it as an adult, still childish because it's something you picked up in childhood that you didn't process. You didn't have the wherewithal, you didn't have the maturity to process that as a 3, 4, 7, 8 year old child. So all of that gets stored until you begin to get curious. And guess what? When you get curious, every irritation becomes an invitation. Then you look at the beliefs that you had. Why? Because what keeps the world in chains is our beliefs. So you got to look at the beliefs from childhood to begin to change them. And if you have the teachings of A Course in Miracles, now you know what to change them to. Now you know what to anchor yourself with as the foundation of your thought system. You go to the source. God, what is it that you know as the truth of who I am? Now, everything, what happened to me as a, 5-year-old, did that happen? Yes, it's true in the belief system. Small t truth. What is the capital T truth? Well, the truth is that I'm the creator who chose to have that experience. This is very difficult for somebody who is in the midst of their feeling their trauma and feeling their pain. If you haven't learned how to process that, what I'm saying sounds like, I'm batshit crazy. That's okay. This makes sense when you begin your spiritual maturity, where you realize that first and foremost, if you are going to create your house on solid ground, the Bible tells us that, you need to have a foundation that is built on solid rock. The rock being God created you to create. You are made in the image of a creator to create in its image. And if it's a loving creator, you were created to be loving. Why is there so much unloving stuff in my life? Because we forgot. That's it. That's it. We forgive everybody for forgetting that we are loving, that we're equal. So when you do that work of the childhood trauma, then in the now moment, you begin to take control of your mind. You train your mind to think rightly, to think with God, to move out of finiteness into eternal, unlimited potential and possibility. This is why you have to become open-minded. We can't be the only species floating in the universe. You open up to that there's got to be more. And then you use discernment. Is that more coming from the frequency of love, or is that more coming from a lower frequency? Maybe higher than earthly frequencies, but still operating in the egoic idea of separation that needs to control, that needs to conquer another. So we've got to be discerning about who operates with God and who doesn't. Who operates with God, not what religion teaches, not dogma, but God of your own understanding, of your own experience. So let's go into paragraph number 4. The world is nothing in itself. Why is it nothing? Because it's all made of energy. Because it's all made of pure, non-physical energy. It's consciousness. We projected it. So if you are really committed that this world means something, that this world is special, that this world is all there is, you're going to have a hard time loosening yourself from the world. Nothing wrong with that. It just means that developmentally, you are still in the lower 3 chakras, in the lower frequencies, in the lower thought system. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a 3rd grader. A 3rd grader is not worse than a 12th grader. It just means that you are in that stage of development of the truth of who you are, of understanding it and acceptance of it. Nothing wrong with that, which is why one of the characteristics of a teacher of God is honesty. What honesty means is that you must know the truth and then you apply it. You think it, you speak it, you acted all of it consistently. A 3rd grader cannot apply the same information that a 12th grader can apply and think and do, because a 12th grader has had more years to practice that. So the same thing, when you read something like this, the world in itself is nothing, if it spooks you where you think it's crazy, well, you have 2 options. You can block it and remain in your little cocoon. Nothing wrong with that. That just means you need a little bit more time in 3rd grade. Maybe you got to repeat 3rd grade. Some people repeat 3rd grade. Some people can skip grades. Some people repeat grades. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the path that we have chosen to arrive at the remembering of the truth of who we are. Or you can become curious. Love yourself enough to say, hey, I don't know it all. I want to expand my mind. Because do you realize that is an act of self-loathing to remain small? Let me repeat that. It's an act of self-loathing to remain small. That means I don't love myself enough to know more than I know. I don't love myself enough to explore the vastness that I come from. So I will remain small because I'm scared. But we don't necessarily say that. We just say I'm right. Because that righteousness is fear of being wrong. And the thing about the Course in Miracles is it teaches us, yes, there's a wrong mind, there's wrong thinking, but it's not the way we use the word wrong in the world, which is if you're wrong, you're stupid somehow. Actually, to be curious and recognize you're wrong is spiritually very mature because it requires an incredible amount of maturity and humbleness to say, I've been incorrect about this. God, please show me another way. Holy Spirit, show me another way. And until we are prepared to do that, we cannot accept something like the world is nothing in itself. It's actually very liberating because when you get comfortable with the world is nothing in of itself, then you go to, well, then what has the power? If the world doesn't have it because it's nothing in itself, where is the power? And guess what? The Course is very consistent. It's going to come back to you. You have the power. And you have the power because God gave it to you. And you have the free will to accept the power and wield it with love, or to reject the power, which is to make yourself powerless. Or here's the crazy thing, you can think you're powerful, but you wield that power by controlling others from a place of fear. And you do it from a place of fear. And everybody who thinks that they're powerful over others, every one of them is doing that from fear. Fear to expose the truth of who they are, which is an immature third grader thinking that they run the world. But that's okay because God gave us free will so we can each be in whatever grade we want to be in for however long we want to be there. Why? We're infinite. So if it takes you 47,000 lifetimes to get through third grade, it's okay because all of the knowledge of who you are is already inside of you. You're just on a journey to peel back the layers, to remove the obstacles, to remember the truth of who you are, to access the awareness of the love that has already been there. You are always in control of your journey. Seriously, we were granted the power by the Creator through free will to experience however long we want, forgetting who we really are. I mean, if that doesn't make you kind of chuckle, if you don't come to the place that you go, oh my gosh, this is a divine comedy. This is really the funniest thing I've ever heard. I was created powerfully to believe that I have no power at all. And that's the use of my power? Well, when that makes sense to you, congratulations, you just graduated from third grade. You just skipped a whole bunch of grades and you moved into the advanced classes. Sentence number 2. The mind must give it meaning to the world for it to be something. And what you behold upon it are your wishes. And this is so important to understand. Let me finish reading this sentence. What you behold upon it, upon the world, are your wishes acted out so you can look on them and think them real. God gave you free will. You decide, okay, I'm going to incarnate on planet Earth. I know it's a crazy planet, but I can handle it. I'm going to go down there. I've got all kinds of angels who are going to incarnate with me, and some of them, their job is to help remind me. My job's to help to remind them of the truth of who we are. And I'm going to incarnate and pretend that I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a, whatever, and I'm going to forget who I am, and I'm going to have all of these experiences. This is why your mind wished to have that experience. The Course is really clear. The script is already written. Excuse me, we're living a movie. We are a character in the movie that we wrote before we incarnated. And we put in there all the players that were going to help us go as low as we want to go, because it's like a divine limbo game. How low can you go? And then we play the game of, okay, how much truth do I want to remember? Meaning, how high do I now want to go? You're in total control of it. And here's how you know your control: by your need to be right and resist, or by your desire to be curious and humble yourself. Maybe there is another way. Maybe there's more than what I believe. And I'll tell you, nothing helped me more on my journey when I began to move from my phase of bliss into getting caught up in my day-to-day life as a mom, as a wife, as a realtor. Nothing helped me more than to constantly remind myself, I know everything is within me, but I don't remember it. I cannot possibly know it all. My head is filled with misinformation. And I would remind myself, Lina, stop thinking you're right. Stop giving up being right. And I began to play the game as if everything that I believed was absolutely, completely erroneous. I didn't make myself wrong for that at that time. I didn't make myself wrong for being wrong. I actually was excited when I realized, oh, I'm incorrect. That meant there's another way, there's another possibility. I used to defend being right. I didn't want to be wrong. And then I realized, oh, I'm either right because I know the information, or I'm learning. To be wrong was no longer had a negative connotation. It didn't mean I'm stupid. It didn't mean I'm the idiot of the class. It just meant, well, I'm the curious one in the class. I show me the way. What else is out there? That's why when I get into conversations with people who don't understand the course, I if they're not open to the course, I'm always curious about, well, tell me what you think. Well, how do you see this unfolding in your life? Where did that thought come from? I'm curious about how them as a powerful creator have written their script. And it makes it so much more fun. Before, when I was totally unconscious, or mostly unconscious, and even while at the start of my spiritual journey, my ego needed to be right. I needed to let them know what I knew from the Course in Miracles or my spiritual teachings. And by gosh, that was the truth, and they were wrong. And then I realized, the Course in Miracles is a required course, not because you have to study the course itself, but because you have to train your mind. It is required that you understand the way the mind works, and that there's only two thought systems, one with God and one opposing God. That's it. This is why you either remember that everything is love expressing itself as love, or there's a block to love. There is no source of darkness. There is no source of badness. There is simply a lack of remembering the goodness. So when you don't remember the good, you operate in fear. If you're operating in fear, you're going to do things that are not loving. That's all that it is. So this lets us know that the world that we're seeing is the projection of our wishes as a powerful creator who wanted to have this experience. Don't blame anybody. That's why there are no victims. When you begin to understand the truth, then you realize, oh, wow, everybody's a powerful creator. Now, there's no need to blame them. There's only a recognition that they're either extending love or they're calling for love. They're either remembering who they are, which then they're extending the kingdom, or they forgot who they are, which then they are trying to hoard, to withhold, to take more for themselves, which is why greed is such a big part of the ego. Sentence 4 says, perhaps you think you did not make the world, but came unwillingly to what was made already, hardly waiting for your thoughts to give it meaning. Yet in truth, you found exactly what you looked for when you came. Do you see how much spiritual maturity is required to understand that paragraph? You came here. Well, where did I come from? Well, that's the question. Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? That's why when you begin to move down this spiritual path, it's a path of questioning, where did I come from? And no, it wasn't just from your mom and dad. It wasn't from your mother's womb. It wasn't from the stork. Or now, they've got these fake AI wombs that supposed to be making babies. You did not come from anything like that. You came from the mind of God, thought into existence by a creator who wanted you here loves you so much that it gave you its power to create anything you wanted except yourself because it already created you. You don't need to create yourself, you already created. I mean, that should be an obvious. That makes sense, right? So then what did we do with all that power? We pretended to be powerless. Oh, poor me, I'm going to experience being, a third dimensional being. It's like when my grandbabies play. One will be or just when I was a child, one was a doctor, the other one was a poor patient who had to take the shots from the doctor, who had to have the doctor look into your eyes and tap your forehead and tell you you're sick, and you pretend you were sick. That's what we're doing. We're pretending that we're sick. We're pretending that we don't remember. We're pretending that we're less than what we are. When you understand that, then it makes perfect sense. Oh, I'm pretending to not be who I am. Then let me look at what I am pretending to be. Then you look at your life and you realize, oh, okay, I pretended to be a woman. I pretended to be a grandmother now. I pretended to be divorced. I pretended to start off as Catholic, and now I don't believe that anymore. So you begin to accept who you are exactly where you are. This is where self-love comes in. You start to accept where you are. You stop fighting where you are because you begin to understand that you got programmed with information that you picked up, and they have bound you to the world because you believe that those things are true. If you don't believe that, you don't feel bound to the world. And let's go to paragraph number 5. There is no world apart from what you wish. This is so important to understand. Right here, Jesus is telling us, this is what I learned in the Far East. There is no world apart from what you wish. And herein lies your ultimate release. You must recognize that this world that you are in, you you made it. You made it up. You made it up to have the experience that you're having. If you're done with that experience, if you want to return to the truth of who you are, if you want to find the peace that passes all understanding, you must begin to accept without exception what Jesus is telling you is the truth of who you are. He found the way. He learned the way, and he's sharing it with us. I have found the way. I'm sharing it with you. I'm still learning because I'm still not, I can be very honest about the fact and completely okay with the fact that I haven't graduated yet. I'm still in the learning stage, but I know that I'm in an advanced classroom. And I'm in an advanced classroom because you cannot convince me that anything out there is real. I know that it is being projected. And when the news wants to tell us that the aliens are coming, it's not going to scare me. Number one, I don't believe the media. It's not that I doubt that the aliens are coming. It's just I don't believe that the aliens are here to hurt us. So I don't give my power to anything outside of me. I absolutely know that whatever shows up, I wanted it there. So I'm welcoming it. And guess what? It's going to show up according to my consciousness. And if my consciousness is based on love, I'm going to meet beloved advanced beings that are just expressions of my own consciousness from a more advanced state. And the ones that I'm going to be encountering are going to help me remember more of the truth of who I am. They're like in the graduate program, helping to tutor me while I'm in middle school. That's all that it is. I don't have anybody coming in to teach me about fear, about lack, about limitation, about conquering. That's the game that I left behind. I played that game. I have now moved to another game that I wish to experience. Why? There is no world apart from what you wish. You got to take this stuff literally. I wish to see a world where we help one another, where beings, because God is infinite, you've got to accept infinite possibilities. God created in its infinite mind all kinds of beings, creatures, things. Look at the flowers. How many different variety of flowers are there? How many different variety of animals? Do you think there's only one human species? I mean, we've got to get out of our boxes of limitation. Welcome the vastness. Be in awe of a creator that has zero limits to what it can create. And when you align with the truth that you are a thought in the mind of that which is infinite, which is creative, and its substance, the essence of what it is love, then you're just meeting aspects of yourself who are coming to help you remember more of the truth of who you are, lovingly to assist you in co-creating a world that, as the Course calls, becomes a happy dream. I am so excited about a world that is a part of a galactic community. I don't know about you. I'm frankly tired of the limitation of my communities are in my city, or they're in my state, or in my country. My communities are in the multiverse. I love that idea. I want to meet beings from all over the place. Why? Because I accept the truth of who I am. I have returned, as it says in here, in the first paragraph. I'm going to read the first two sentences. What keeps the world in chains but your beliefs? And what can save the world except your capital S self? My capital S self is very comfortable accepting I don't know what I don't know, but I do know how to tap into the source that allows me to experience the discernment to know that I'm not going to limit what God can create. That would be my ego that would want to limit. I'm not listening to my ego anymore, or hardly ever listen to it. So God is infinite. God created infinitely. If there are more beings, if there are more brothers and sisters, cousins, whatever you want to call them, then bring them on. I am joyfully awaiting the descent upon this planet, upon this dimension of all the beings that want to love us and help tutor us out of this insanity. I really am done with the insanity. I mean, it was fun for a while, but now it's like it's boring. That's all it is. Being crazy is boring to me. I've been there. I've been crazy for a long time. Now that I know that I don't have to be crazy, that I use my power to make the experience of crazy, I don't want to keep repeating that. Like, why should I keep repeating third grade? I'm, 65, almost 65 years old. At some point, I need to graduate from third grade. And that happened by being open-minded to what else is there. And of course, through thankfully, Brother Jesus helped me expand my awareness. So, sentence number 2, change but your mind on what you want to see, and all the world must change accordingly. Isn't that beautiful? We're told right here, right here. Jesus gave us the good news 50 years ago. He told us, 2,000 years ago, you and the Father are one. Here we're being told, you are one with a creative mind. Use your mind to create something different if you want something different. Ideas leave not their source. This central theme is often stated in the text and must be borne in mind if you would understand the lesson for today. It is not pride which tells you that you made the world you see and that it changes as you change your mind. It's not ego pride. This is soul pride. It is an awareness. When I use my charts, let me move this over here. When I use my charts and you look at the word pride and you see where it calibrates, it's about halfway through this journey. It's not quite halfway. It's still pretty low, but it's a lot higher than shame and guilt and fear and anger. When you begin to experience pride, you begin to love yourself. You begin to go, wow, let me accept the power that God gave me. Let me rest inside of like a little kid. Use your imagination. If I'm a loving being and I can create anything, what would I want to create? Just sit with that. If I'm a loving being and I create anything, anything you create is going to have love with it. You're going to use your imagination to come up with any possibility. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be exciting? Wouldn't that be joyful? Well, you've got to be the one who can change your mind. You've got to decide to accept the truth that will set you free. If you don't accept the truth that sets you free, it's because you don't want to be set free. This is what we have to really, truly understand. You have to grasp the concept that if you believe something to be so, it's because you want it to be so. If you don't want it to be so, if you don't want to be in fear, like I was of the Catholic Church, of going to hell, then you have to decide that's not my truth. Now, I couldn't just shift and lift at that time. I had to go read books. I had lots of people who had written many books that explained the history of religion. The Course tells you every thought system has a beginning point. Every thought system starts somewhere. So I went to the start of that Catholic religion and I saw, well, it wasn't there before. All those rules and regulations were not part before. So let me return my mind to before that. So what happened then is, okay, then I don't have to abide by any of that, so that Catholicism is not my reality. So I return my mind to a place before the indoctrination and then began to ask God, what is the truth? Then I changed my mind from what I thought it was, the fears of Catholicism. And by the way, Catholicism, there's lots of beautiful things in it, but I was moving away from the fears. I kept the stories of Jesus. I love those stories. I love Jesus. I feel it's my homie. It's my guide. It's my teacher. It's my brother. It's an aspect of myself that I'm learning from. It's a being from a higher dimension that has willingly come down here to tutor me. I used tutors when I was in school. I used tutors for my children. Why wouldn't I let one who knows more than me tutor me? So here we are. I'm changing my mind because Jesus taught me how to change my mind. In paragraph 6, but it is pride that argues you have come into the world quite separate from yourself, impervious to what you think, and quite apart from what you chance to think it is. Ego pride says, I descended. When you look at this chart, you got to look at everything from whether you're descending or whether you're ascending. If you're descending, it's the ego. Pride, well, courage is above pride. It took a lot of courage to pretend that you're not who you are. It took a lot of courage to descend into this dimension. And of course, the ego then takes on the pride. Oh, yes, I'm separate, but I'm small. I'm just this finite person, and I need the government to take care of me, and I need the boss to give me the jobs that allows me to make money, and I need the central banks to tell me what my money's worth and how much I need, and I need them to determine, what inflation is and how less of my money I get to keep. Yeah, I need them to tell me all of these things. So it took a lot of courage to get into the ego pride, to descend into those belief systems. And then what happens after that? You're here and you're operating in that delusion. Of course, you're going to be angry. You're going to be angry. Whoa, wait a second. I've been working. My money doesn't go that far. And somebody's telling me, that I've got to go to war and that I've got to accept this or that or the other. Of course, you're going to feel anger. If you don't act on that anger, you can't go up. Because then you got to find that anger that says, okay, I'm going to love myself enough to become what? To become courageous enough to question all of this, to stand against the system that I gave power to. But if you don't use your anger, then you will just descend into the places of guilt and shame and apathy where, oh, I'm stuck down here. Poor me. I'm just a victim of all this. But then when you reverse the journey, you're using your soul to guide you. Holy Spirit will guide you to work through the shame, to work through the guilt. Well, how do you do that? You question it. Irritation becomes an invitation. You question it. Where did I pick this up? And you begin to realize, okay, my soul cannot be affected by anything. So then it's my mind that got programmed by things. So you're letting go of programming as you accept the power within your soul to change your mind. Why? Because that's where your power is. The power that we have is the power of thought, of creation. Creation happens from thought. If you're non-physical, the power is not in your body. You're not your body. We're the consciousness that creates everything. So if you want a different reality, if you want to experience a world that operates very differently, which is what I want a happy dream. But I know that in the third dimension, we're using time to undo what got built over time. So it appears that we may have to wait a couple more years, a couple more election cycles, a couple more, maybe a decade or two of things changing so that I can see projected out there that which I desire be my reality. But because we operate in what appears to be mass consciousness, that there's a lot of us thinking and co-creating, we need more to want to think with the truth, who are not buying into what the government tells you, not buying into what the medical establishment tells you, not buying into power being outside of you. You love yourself enough to take your power, gather with those who are like-minded, and then we are co-creating that reality. You can use COVID as a perfect example. Look at how many people believe that the government knew better and how many people said, nope, I'm not going to do it. And then what has happened? 5, 6 years later, we have a lot of people who believe, nope, I'm not going to do that. And guess what? Some of the regulations are changing. Some of the systems are changing where they're not going to be mandating these things. So change happens, but it happens slowly in the third dimension, which is you slow yourself down, you experience time, you experience matter, and everything feels weighted down. But as you begin to change your mind, you begin to realize, well, I like to experience it now. So you become the change you want to see in the world. You become the one who takes control of your mind. And now you don't buy into that, but you're still in the world. You're just not of it. So you're in the world, and there are people who say, yeah, you have to do this, but you gravitate to the ones who say, no, you don't. You participate in that. You vote for those people. You align with that, which will bring about the mass consciousness experience that you prefer. But it does take time. We're in the world of time and space. You gotta make peace with that. In a different dimension, that's not what rules that dimension, but this dimension, it does. So you make peace with where you are. You embrace your body. You take care of it. It's your vessel for this lifetime. It's where your consciousness is housed. It's what houses your consciousness because it's way bigger than your body. But it appears that it's coming from within. You make peace with all of those things. Paragraph 6. But it is pride that argues that you have come into a world quite separate from yourself, impervious to what you think, and quite apart from what you chance to think it is. There is no world! Exclamation mark. Course in Miracles doesn't have too many exclamation marks in it. I mean, I challenge you, go look for them. You're not going to find too many of them. It's there because there is no world. There is no world. And until you accept that you projected it, you cannot begin to change it. Because you have to accept the power that is within you. And this is why there are lessons that teach you, I'm under no laws but God's. When you accept that you're the creator of your reality, then you begin to utilize your power consciously to create the reality that you prefer. This is the central thought the Course attempts to teach. There is no world. Not everyone is ready to accept this. The Course is telling you right here, not everyone is going to want to graduate from third grade. And I'm just using that grade as just as an example, not because I know that that's the grade that we're in, but we call this a 3D world. So I use the example of third grade. Not everyone is ready to accept it, and each one must go as far as he can let himself be led along the road to truth. Wow. This ties back to what I said earlier. You are the creator of your reality. If you don't want to accept the tutoring, you don't have to. But if you remain one who is blaming the world for your uh, experiences, then you are living inside of the frequency of a victim because you want to have that experience. And again, this is a hard concept to understand until you have decided to receive the tutoring, to receive the guidance, to receive the training, and you begin to experience those incremental shifts in your mind. You begin to think rightly. You begin to feel the experience of how that power operates in your life, and then you begin to realize, oh yes, I'm in the matrix that I wanted to be incarnated into, but I don't have to be of it. I can loosen myself from the world. I can cut the bounds to that anything out here makes me somebody, makes me happy, makes me safe. But you have to have enough courage to believe that. So when the systems break down, and they have to, and we go through financial disruption, you're going to find out pretty quickly if you're bound to your money keeping you safe. If for whatever reason everything gets wiped from your bank account as we're transitioning, and you can go, oh, today I was a millionaire, or yesterday I was a millionaire. Today, there's nothing there. And you don't lose your shit. You stay present to, okay, well, I created this reality. How do I want to navigate this? So that you can then come to your grounded place and say, oh, no, I really want to have, I'm in the world, I need money. I'm in the world and I want to have the experience of financial security. Come back to a place of peace and you ask the Holy Spirit, show me how things are happening. You will have to look at what's happening in the world. Look at what other options are available to you. If you're under no laws but God's, you are aligning with those who are in a consciousness of love, co creating a new financial system. The ones in the consciousness of love, co creating a new medical system. The ones with a consciousness of love, caring for one another, co creating a new medical or a new education system, a new political system. The new things are being created by conscious beings who care about one another. Have you been educating yourself about what that looks like? If you haven't, then you will have to experience the disillusion of what you thought you had so that you can find yourself without that safety net and realize that you build your house on solid ground. Can you go to God? Can you go to Holy Spirit to find your way again? Can you get yourself a tutor to assist you moving through that? Or are you going to be angry and blaming the system and in fear and worried and scared and calling people up and yelling at the person on the other side of the phone at the bank? None of that is loving. So that means you wish to experience more suffering. That's okay. You're the powerful creator of your reality. Whether you accept it or not, you're creating everything every second of your experience. And I, as a loving sister, am going to keep reminding you of your power. I'm not going to join you in your feeling disempowerment. I'm not going to join you in your pity party, but I'm also not going to try and convince you that that's not true because it's what you want to have as your experience. Then the next sentence after that, which is so powerful, he will return and go still further, or perhaps step back a while and then return again. That's why some people will repeat third grade. Some people will maybe have to go back to second grade because you didn't learn the lessons. Nothing wrong with that. So the advice here is recognize that all your friends, your brothers, your sisters in truth, in small t truth, your parents, your children, they're all where they want to be. Don't try to shake them awake because if they didn't ask you for how are you so peaceful in the middle of all of this, they don't want your advice. They don't want you as a tutor. As a matter of fact, it's very difficult to be a prophet in your own land. Very difficult to be a teacher to those who knew you before you became peaceful because they have decades of experiencing you as one who is easily irritated, one who looks outside of yourself for answers, for power. So don't get upset if they don't listen to you. Let's go to paragraph number 7, and we'll stop after paragraph 7. But healing is the gift of those who are prepared to learn there is no world. Paragraph 7, sentence 1. Healing is the gift of those who are prepared to learn there is no world and can accept the lesson now. Their readiness, you got to be prepared to say, okay, I'm willing to look at this. Their readiness will bring the lesson to them in some form which they can understand and recognize. Some see it suddenly on a point of death and rise to teach it. Others find it in experience that is not of this world. For me, I had that encounter with the divine. That was not of this world. Some people have to go to their death, and at their moment of death before they transition, they go, "Oh my God, it all makes sense. I made all this up," and then they croak. And then they cross over, they go to the other side, and they go, "Okay, God, I am ready to go back in there. I'm going to incarnate, and I'm going to do it differently this time." That's why don't be upset for anybody that dies because they're just leaving the game because they're done with it. They're done with playing the game and on the other side of croaking, which is what Abraham says, because why give it so much power? Croaking is not, the death experience is not real. You're not even a body. So you got to lighten up about all this stuff. And when you lighten up about it, you begin to go, this is really funny. I am powerful creator. Am I ready to accept this? Am I going to learn from somebody else? Am I going to let somebody tutor me? Or do I need to die to release myself from this? So simple. It's easy. You exit the matrix while you're here, or you exit the matrix and then remember who you really are. It's okay. This shows them that the world does not exist because what they behold must be the truth when you die. When you're not here anymore and you're in the light and you go, wow, all those people who have those near death experiences, they are remembering the truth and then they're coming into the world to learn to not be of it. And yet, it clearly contradicts the world. Nobody who is sharing their near death experience is expecting people to understand what they went through. No one that I have shared the encounter that I had with the divine, that 45 minutes to an hour encounter that totally changed my life. It gave me the truth. It opened me up to what it is. And then I closed a lot of it down and went back to, making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and getting in the preschool drop-off line and paying bills and doing laundry, changing poopy diapers, whatever it was. You have to make peace. Number one, you have to make peace with the truth of who you are. And you cannot do that until you acknowledge what created you. We must acknowledge God as our creator. This country right now was celebrating Sunday the return of our becoming a country under God. It's all well and good. That's a wonderful thing. We have to go back to that. But is somebody outside of you telling what God is? Is somebody outside of you determining your path to God, determining how God is and what God says is true? Or are you finding love inside of you, finding that soul pride to have the courage to say, yes, we need to return to God, but I'm not following your God. I'm following my God. And my God is loving. My God has taught me through my brother Jesus to love my neighbor as myself. You become the one that can forgive them for they know not what they're doing. You don't need to attack them. You don't need to defend yourself. Why? Because defenseless is a characteristic of a teacher of God. Are we prepared as teachers of God to see what is going on in the world and begin the most advanced possible extension that we can do while in physical form? And that is to extend the kingdom through loving everybody, respecting that they are where they are. Don't try to change them, but remember the voice that is tutoring you, that is guiding you, helping you forgive them. They don't remember who they are. So therefore they don't know what they're doing. Are we going to be the ones? And I believe that we are being trained to be the ones, along with so many others who are being tutored by the Pleiadians or the Arcturians, or they're being tutored by the Hindus or the Buddhists, and they're moving, or mystical Christianity, and they're moving to the true essence of the teachings, which is, if you want to have a world where we all love one another, where there's no corruption, where transparency and truth and caring for one another is normal, you have to make that your new normal. You got to be quick to forgive. You got to be quick to not need to defend yourself. You've got to be quick to not care what anybody else thinks and stand grounded in the truth of who you are, because that is the only way to build your house on solid rock. You need to know you are powerful, you are loved, you are magnificent, you are holy, and so is everybody else. And when you operate from that, you're not going to get pulled into the matrix. And if you do, you won't be there very long. You'll quickly see it for what it is, and then you will join forces with those who are co-creating the happy dream. You will support that with, because you're in the world, with your money, with your time, with your actions. Why? Because honesty is your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Yes, A Course in Miracles tells us that even though we don't have bodies, we've got to take action. Isn't that interesting? Does that seem contradictory? Not if you understand paradoxes. Not if you understand that you are in the mind of God, making up that you have a body, so then use the body accordingly. And when you've made peace with yourself, then your body will be serving you. But you have to become the master of your own reality. Accept it. And from there, we get to co-create a happy dream. Isn't this exciting? Isn't this why we come to the Course in Miracles, to learn these things? If you like these conversations, if you want to go deeper into understanding the Course, into having conversations like we do regularly, to look at external events as opportunities to look at our projections, then you will be able to move through this process maybe a little faster, because you'll let us love you and guide you, because we are all here teachers of God. I'm not the only teacher. We all teach each other through what we experience, what we share. Come join us in the Awareness Academy. Otherwise, I will meet you here next Wednesday for another transmission. The stuff that just come through me, I don't sit down and think about, well, what am I going to talk about today? I just let it flow, because I trust that what is flowing is the voice for God. I have no doubt when I open my mouth, that's what comes out now. Ego doesn't really shoot out of my mouth, hardly ever. I can, the thought may start coming, but I'm like, sit down, back seat. You're not the boss of me. I'm very comfortable with not listening to that voice that used to scare me and frighten me and shame me. And nah, it's a fun game I've been playing. And while I'm here, believing that I have a separate body and that I'm Lina, it comes along for the ride. Otherwise, if it goes, then this experience would have to end. And I'm not ready to have it end. I'm having too much fun remembering the truth and co-creating a happy dream with you guys. All right, loved ones. Maybe I'll see some of you guys at the book club tonight that are participating in that. And Miss Susie and Miss Jamie, have fun being together in Florida. I'm so excited. Maybe next time I'll be there with you. All right, everybody.
Love
Love you
ya.
all. See you next time.
Bye,
Bye.
Lina. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, sweet
Love
Natalia.
you.
Take care.